Hey everyone. A couple of days ago, I did a video where I talked about the fact that if DHX Media and the creative staff of Nicole Dubach, Megan McCarthy, M.A.Larson, Martin Larson, Jason Terese, and Josh Haber, Joanna Christine, the lady writers, and anybody else that might be coming on to write stories for episodes in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, if they're not going to address the whole Spike Rarity situation, then they need to drop it. In other words, not tease it anymore, not flirt with it anymore. Don't, use the whole adorable, cute crush deal anymore. Just drop it and be done with it. Or if they still intend to focus on it, tease it, and flirt with it, then just go and make it official. Just go and make Spike and Rarity official. Just make it happen. Make it official in some shape or form. You want to make them straight up boyfriend and girlfriend? Go for it. You want to at least make it official in some capacity where they both acknowledge that, hey, maybe there's something there between them that's more than just friendship? Go ahead and do that. But at least do something that makes it official so that way you can get that off your chest, get that off your shoulders, and move on to other things. I'm pretty sure I point out in that video, in that audio video, that there's a lot of evidence, I should say, throughout the past 7 seasons, that indicate that, or that showcase, you either got to go all the way and make this finally official, or you just got to be done with it. Let's take a look at this. Season 1, since day 1, season 1, Spike was used as the point of view of how beautiful Rarity was. Season 1, he comes out, basically tells Pinkie, Twilight, and the rest of the main 6, minus Rarity, that he has a crush on her. Season 2, they dedicate an episode fully to it, in Secret of My Excess, and Rarity finally finds out, but guess what? She's already known, and she accepts it. She returns those feelings. Dragon Quest kind of centered around it too. Rarity stood up for Spike. Rarity even asked Twilight if they were going to follow Spike. She was more concerned about him. And some might say, well, that was more motherly than anything. That might be true, but then again, that is concerns sometimes by somebody that actually cares for you more than just a friend. And you could say, well, that's motherly and all that, but I look at it the same way I think Voice of Reason looks at it. Not necessarily. Someone that cares about you more than just a friend is someone that sometimes cares about you as something more. But then you take a look that throughout Season 3, Season 4, Season 5, you've had hints and acknowledgments, nods, if you will, to the Spike Rarity deal. Season 3, at the end of the climax of Season 3's premiere, who was the one that heard Spike yell out that he had the crystal heart first, or at least acknowledged and noticed it? Rarity. Who was the one that was concerned about him and even yelled out his name, or his nickname she has for him, when he fell off the castle in trying to hold on to the crystal heart? Rarity. Who's the one that, even though she stifled a bit of a giggle in Season 6, in the Season 6 premiere, the Crystalline, who's the one that stifled a bit of a giggle when Spike kind of talked about how big of a hero he was in the Crystal Empire because of the Season 3 situation? Rarity. Who's the one that, instead of stopping at her boutique or at her house to try to freshen up and everything, took him from the caves, and he was dirt and all, hard hat and all, to Twilight, and basically to Twilight because something was happening with him? Who's the one that gave the same look that Celestia gave Twilight, right, when she was like, "Are you kidding me?" situation, when Twilight got excited and went all nerdish on the opportunity to learn more about dragons? Rarity. Who's the one that first asked Spike why he has to be the one that wins the gauntlet? Rarity. Who's the one that stood up for Spike when Ember was asking Spike what was he doing? Rarity. You kind of sense a pattern here, folks. You sense a pattern? I do. I sense a pattern. Who's the one that Spike saved when she almost fell into a pit of lava during a little rumbling in the volcano area? Spike saving Rarity. You kind of get the idea. Again, you sense a bit of a pattern. And if you want to add the comics to the equation, who's the one that said the final emotional, loving thing to restore Rarity from nightmare Rarity? Spike. That's who. Again, you sense a bit of a pattern. You sense a bit of a pattern, folks. The point I'm getting at, just like I did in the original video, is you have all these hints, all these moments, all these teases. Even season 5 had a moment where she had to use her charms to get Spike to help keep Twilight busy. The point is, folks, do you not acknowledge, you do not see exactly what's going on here? Do you not sense a pattern? And then on top of that, you have an episode in season 8 that pretty much has them both at the center. Both are dealing with situations that are happening, from what I understand. And then you got a screenshot from very said episode of upcoming season where there might be a decision or something being made. The point is, there's so many hints, there's so many visual acknowledgments, visual hints, and all that like I said in the title of that original video, and I said in that video, and I'll say here again, if they're not going to address it, then they need to drop it or make it official. And if season 9 is the last season, then that's probably the best option they got to make things official. That's probably the best option they got to make things official. And why do I say that? Because Rarity and Spike's situation isn't the only thing that needs to be addressed in the final season, whether it's season 9 or season 10. And because we're not sure if season 9 is going to be the actual last season, because if Friendship is Magic still proves itself to be the financial success that DHX and Hasbro see it as, then I wouldn't put it past DHX or Hasbro to want to get another season, a decade's worth run out of the show. I wouldn't put it past them. The point is, folks, So the point I'm trying to make here, folks, is yes, Rarity and Spike need to be addressed. They need to either drop it by the last season, or they need to make them official as a couple, or somehow, in some capacity, shape or form, I should say, in the final season. But again, they're not the only thing that needs to be addressed. The other thing that needs to be addressed are other questions, theories, and statuses that need to be addressed as well. Fame and misfortune in the eyes of people may have been a bad interpretation of the fan base, and a lot of fans would agree with that, especially looking the episode over multiple times or several times over. A lot of people would agree with that, but there are definitely points that are made. Because a lot of the questions that these background ponies that represent the fan base were asking are legit questions that we, the fan base, have actually asked ourselves. These are questions, situations, and theories we want to have answers or we feel need to be addressed. For example, Luna and Celestia's origins. Now, the reason this is something that needs to be addressed is because if you go back to the season 6 premiere of the Crystalline, what does Celestia and Luna say about Flurry Heart's birth? Celestia says that basically the birth of an alicorn is something Equestria has never seen, and Luna follows that up by saying it's even beyond their understanding. So, basically, two of the most iconic princesses in the history of Equestria, two of the most powerful for that matter, are pretty much saying that they don't even know how an alicorn is born at all. That they don't know how it's born, and they don't know whether or not the land that they're looking over has ever seen it. So you're basically, if you're a fan and you're wondering what the heck is going on, why wouldn't they, being around for thousands of years, for 1,000 years, why wouldn't they know about this? Why wouldn't they have the knowledge about this? And especially Celestia, being Twilight's teacher, why wouldn't she have the knowledge to at least pass down to Twilight? See, that raised a lot of questions. And that put the information that you find in the Journal of the Two Sisters in question, because now you don't even know whether that's legit. And pretty much from what we've seen, the comics, the main comics sometimes don't always connect continuity-wise to the show. They don't. The show and them can be completely different, with a few exceptions. Season 7, Legends of Magic arc, tied into the Legends of Magic arc that started in the main comic book and then spun off into its own spin-off series, or limited spin-off series, later on. So those are the only exceptions. The thing is, folks, with those being the only exceptions, a majority of the time, if you will, the comic and the show never really connected together. They never really connected whatsoever. And that's the truth. They never really had any kind of connection. But, other book medium based on Friendship with Magic is now in that same situation, to where whether or not they're true, because they may or may not have a connection as well. I mean, you take a look at, like I say, you take a look at the Journal of the Two Sisters, and any situation there where it says they were naturally born alicorns, that gets tossed out the window now as far as the show is concerned, because you're not sure whether or not that journal is in connection to the show or the comics. So basically, the one thing that needs to be addressed before the show comes to an end is the origin of the two, of whether or not, just like the journal says, the Journal of the Two Sisters says, they're either born as natural born alicorns, or they went the same route as Twilight and earned either the wings or the horns, or the same route Twilight and Cadence went. They either earned the wings or the horns. That is what fans want to know, and they want the show, the animated show, to be the one that finally addresses and acknowledges whether or not the Journal of the Two Sisters is correct or it's wrong. That's all they want. And that's something that all the creative staff, the writing staff that I mentioned earlier, has to address. They have to address that in the final season. But that's not the only thing they have to address. There's a moment in Frame and Misfortune where you have a pony just pop up and asking, AppleJack and Pinkie Pie related or what? Now, I don't know if that was to represent me, because I did a video on that subject, or a representation of everybody asked the same question. But yeah, Pinkie Pie and AppleJack's situation, if you will, that kind of rhymes, has to be addressed as well. People want to know, you go through this trouble, starting with Pinkie Apple Pie, and then you follow it up with Hearthbreakers, and you acknowledge it here and there throughout the series, throughout the majority of the series, and yet we don't have a clear answer. So now the question whether or not they're related in some shape or form has to be addressed. It has to be. And whether or not season 9 is going to be when we get it, that's totally up to the writers. But here's the thing. You don't want to end a series that the fans, that you as a writing staff know, has given you so much in return. The fan base that you originally intended to be younger kids. Well, in your eyes, you intended to be younger kids. But Lauren Faust had came out and said, hey, I want this show to be for everybody. Not knowing exactly what was going to happen, the phenomenon it was going to become. You need to give back. The fan base has given to you so much for what you've given to them with this show that it's time for you to give back in full. It's time for the creative staff to give back in full, and one of the things they need to do by giving back in full is to finally answer and address questions, theories, and situations that are long overdue. That's how they do it. They address situations and theories and answer questions fans have been wanting for a long time to be answered and addressed. They finally do that. They finally take time to do that. And the best opportune moment that they will have is in the final season. Whether that's season 9, or if DHX Media and Hasbro decide to go one more season and get a full decade out of it, whatever it may be, the last season is the best opportune moment to do so. And you might ask, why? Why? It's real simple. One thing that I learned when I was watching Stan Lee's interview by Kevin Smith that he did back in the early 2000s in time for the first Spider-Man movie called Mutants, Monsters, and something. Stan Lee basically said that originally Spider-Man was probably never going to happen because his publisher said nobody likes spiders. But Stan Lee still wanted to do the story, so what did Stan Lee do? Stan Lee heard that Amazing Fantasy, which was a Marvel comic back in the 60s, was coming to an end, and decided, you know what? My publisher pretty much said Spider-Man's not going to happen. I'm just going to get it out of my system. And guess what he did? Last issue of Amazing Fantasy, he got the Spider-Man story out of his system, and what happened in return? Months later, his publisher decided, hey, that Spider-Man's a pretty good idea. You know, maybe there is something to it. Maybe there's something we can make money out of. And the rest was history. It got basically the positive reaction that Stan Lee knew it would get, even if he originally intended it to be just a one-off deal in Amazing Fantasy. The point I'm getting is that Stan Lee got something positive in return and gave the fans something that to this day is one of the most iconic symbols of Marvel Comics when it comes to the superheroes. Now, what this has to do with My Little Pony's potential last season, is real simple. The finality of something, whether it's the last season of a show, whether it's the final issues of a comic, whether it's the final book or so in a novel series, or whether it's the final movie in a trilogy or quadruple series of movies, in the finale of anything, media-wise, shows, movies, comics, novels, even though you want to be consistent and remain within continuity, those final seasons, issues, books, movies also open the door to kind of finally address certain situations and finally answer questions fans have been wanting for a long time. That's what they do. The finality of something finally opens the door for a lot of things to be addressed and certain questions to be answered. A lot of final issues of comics, final books of novels, final series, final seasons and episodes of series, television series, animated or live action, same with movies, open the door to have that happen. And guess what? When they do it, fans are left satisfied. Fans and viewers are left satisfied because even though let's say the final episode may leave them wondering what the heck that was about, at least they know that a majority of the rest of the series, final season, gave them something that they've been wanting. It finally answered questions that they've been wanting answered. Finally addressed situations and theories that they wanted to be addressed. I mean, yes, the last episode could have your head scratching, but as long as the rest of the season currently did what you've been hoping it would do, and so be it. And a lot of writers and producers use the final season to do just that. They use it to finally address situations and answer questions that not just the fans want to have addressed and answered, but they too, in a sense, want to finally get off their chest. And when it comes to Friendship is Magic, depending on when the final season is, the writing staff better know that they don't want to basically leave the show like this on a cliffhanger. Because if you leave it on a cliffhanger, fans are not going to be appreciative of that. Fans are going to demand that you finish the job, that you give them the answers, that you address the situations. I mean, when Sonic Sat AM ended season 2, everybody, including myself, thought there was going to be a third season, and when there wasn't, we pretty much got mad. We pretty much were upset about it. We were like, what's going on here? And for years and years, and to this day, fans, even after what Ben Hurst, God rest his soul, has addressed and told us about in various interviews and stuff, we still want to know what it would look like. We still want to know what season 3 would have felt like and been like had Ben Hurst ideas been been brought to life on the small screen, along with any other ideas he or any other writers would have came up with. Another good example is the phenomenon that was known as the original Dallas show. The original Dallas show was a big hit. And yes, even to this day, you have the Who Shot JR deal, and I think they may or may not address that. But the ending of the original Dallas is what really got people's heads scratching because here you had a character that was supposedly killed off, and that character is the last one you see is the last character you see before the show ends officially, and he's taking a shower. Patrick Dempsey's, character, or I think that's who it was. His character is the last one you see before the show finally fades to black for good. Do you think a lot of fans of Dallas, even to this day, appreciated that? No. They didn't, because they're thinking, what the heck was that about? Why do that? Why end the series on a cliffhanger? And when it comes to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, fans don't want that to happen. That is the last thing they would want to happen, and the creative staff knows this. They know this. So if they don't want the fans to turn their back on them and not give Gen 5, whatever it may be like, and whatever the characters may look like, a chance, then they need to put a finality on Generation 4 and Friendship is Magic if there's not going to be any connection, which I think there should be, but if there's not going to be any connection and it's going to be a complete clean slate, they need to put finality on the series and address certain situations and theories and answer certain questions that fans have been wanting answered since almost the beginning, as well as address certain situations and theories that fans have been wanting addressed since the beginning as well, or when these certain moments have come up. So in the end, what I'm trying to say is, whether the show goes to another season or 2 more, Rarity and Spike isn't the only thing that needs to be addressed. The Rarity and Spike situation is not the only thing that needs to be addressed. There is a variety of stuff, a variety of things that need to be addressed, a variety of situations, theories, as well as questions that need to be answered. Because the last thing you want to do is end the series on cliffhangers, and the last thing you want to do is end the series without addressing these situations, these theories, and answering these questions. And I think Megan McCarthy, Nicole Dubach, M.A.Larson, Jason Teresen, Josh Haber, Joanne and Christine, the lady writers, and many others that are going to be writing for the show, they know this, and they know they need to finally put a lot of this to rest by either answering these questions, by finally answering the questions fans have been wanting that I've mentioned, as well as finally addressing the theories and situations that I mentioned as well. So that's all I'm going to really say about it. I do apologize for this going as long as it did, for about a little over 25, 26 minutes. I will put it in the, hopefully you've read the description where I said take your time in watching this or listening to this. So let me know what you guys think down below. Again, hopefully you take your time in listening, and I will talk to y'all later.